Thank you very much for your willingness to give us this interview. I would like to start with the first question, and that would be, how do you see the EU's future relationship towards Russia and with Russia after this war ends, after all of this finally comes to an end?
So, thank you for asking that question, because I think it's a very important question to consider, and I think it's hard for us to even conceive of it as a question in this moment, which, from an emotional point of view is very understandable. But we do need to consider what comes after, also because, presumably with the end of the war, we will also see the end of Putin's regime. And in that sense, imagining different relations and what form those relations will take. I mean, clearly, some sort of collaboration will have to be developed, and the steps towards that should already, start to be imagined, at least, if not taken right now.
How do you see Ukraine's future within the European security architecture? Because Ukraine faces the war and faces everything because it wanted to join the EU, it wanted to join NATO. And so how can we assume Ukraine's position as a country after this war, when it will finally join the EU or be on its way to join the EU? How will its security be?
I think, of course, the push towards opening negotiations and opening the path to accession for Ukraine, it would be nice to say otherwise, but it was very much a result of the war. It was, driven by the war. And let's hope that process continues. I mean, let's remember how many other states have been in the accession waiting room for many, many years. So, what form and what duration that path will take, is one big question. The second question, I think, regards, the broader security architecture that we're talking about, which will also be inevitably transformed. So we can't just speak of, Ukraine alone in isolation.
Let me ask you about the winter which comes. Many fear the winter, many fear what will happen on the front, what will happen in Ukraine, how will the situation develop, will the Ukrainian counteroffensive proceed or will it come to a stall? What can we expect? What do you think?
I'm very wary of making predictions, so I won't make any predictions. And I think I'll just repeat what pretty much everybody has been saying, that this war will continue to be brutal. It will get even more brutal as the events actually of today have shown. So I think, unfortunately, I'd like to be more optimistic, but I think the next days, weeks, months will bring only further violence.
Maybe last but not least, how do you see the EU as a security apparatus within the EU? So how can we see the future approach of EU's foreign policy towards the East? How can we describe it maybe? How will it be changed by those events which are happening and unfolding in the last 6 months?
So I think, the interesting thing is that since the start of the war, there has been a lot of talk about, how the EU has finally found its geopolitical mission, its geopolitical soul, how there's a sudden unity. I mean, yes and no. So far, I think, still with a lot of divisions. Having said that, so I would be very wary of proclaiming suddenly a geopolitical unity and vision. The war has forced, not just the soul searching, but the need to act. Now, what form that will that will take, I think, we still have to see. I think it will be very important for the EU to keep working, but working from things that are already there, such as the strategic compass. I mean, we have already some of these tools, and developing really, I think, an autonomous capacity, but also an autonomous, let's say, governance mechanism for, what it does as a security actor.
Thank you very much for this interview.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.